I've never told this story to anyone. Not my wife, not my closest friends, and definitely not the police. I kept my mouth shut because I had no choice. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't worth the risk, especially when you have a family to protect. This happened 4 years ago in early December. My wife Jennifer wanted a real Christmas tree that year. Usually, we just went to the Lowe's parking lot, bought a pre-cut Douglas fir, and strapped it to the roof. Simple, easy. But that year, Jennifer saw something on Pinterest about going into the national forest and cutting your own tree. She thought it would be a nice tradition to start. I agreed, but our work schedules didn't line up that month, so I decided to take a half day off on a Wednesday and surprise her and my daughter Emma, who was 6 at the time. I drove my Chevy Silverado up into the Cascade Mountains east of Seattle. In our state, you can buy a $10 permit to legally cut a tree in designated areas. I drove past the main cutting zones near the highway because they looked completely picked over, nothing but stumps and scraggly leftovers. I wanted something perfect. I found a narrow dirt service road that wound deeper into the woods, still legally part of the cutting zone, just further out where fewer people bothered going. It was about 3:30 when I parked. The sun sets ridiculously early in the mountains during December, so the light already had that flat gray look that comes before dusk. The air was freezing, probably around 18 degrees. I grabbed my handsaw and work gloves, locked the truck, and walked into the tree line. It was eerily quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels unnatural and heavy. The snow was about 8 inches deep, crunching loudly with every step. I walked for maybe 20 minutes until I found a small clearing. There it was. A perfect noble fir about 8 feet tall, symmetrical branches, healthy green needles. Exactly what Jennifer would love. I knelt down and started sawing through the trunk. It takes way more effort to cut down a fresh tree than people think. Within minutes, I was sweating hard despite the freezing temperature, breathing heavily, my breath coming out in thick white clouds. The saw was loud, rhythmically grinding against the dense wood. That's when I heard it. Not a twig snapping or wind in branches. The distinct sound of snow compressing under weight. Crunch, crunch. I stopped sawing immediately. The noise stopped at the exact same moment. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoed slightly in the stillness. Nothing, just wind blowing through the pine needles overhead. I figured it was probably another person looking for a tree, or maybe a deer. I went back to sawing, but much faster this time, pulling the blade harder. I felt this weird prickling on the back of my neck and between my shoulder blades. That primitive feeling when you absolutely know eyes are watching you. I cut through the last bit and the tree toppled over with a soft thump. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed the trunk and started dragging it back toward the service road. Dragging a full tree through deep snow is exhausting. My arms burned and my back screamed. I had to stop after 5 minutes to catch my breath. I looked back over my shoulder. About 60 yards back, behind a cluster of dark spruce trees, I saw a shape. A dark silhouette contrasting against the white snow. The moment I turned to look directly at it, it ducked behind a thick trunk. Fast. It wasn't an animal. The shape was too tall, too vertical. It was a person. Panic spiked hard in my chest. I didn't call out this time. I just gripped the tree harder and started walking much faster, practically jogging. I heard footsteps behind me again, closer now. They weren't trying to be quiet anymore. Heavy, fast, deliberate. Someone was running straight at me. I abandoned the tree completely. Dropped it right there and broke into a full sprint, covering the last 100 yards to my truck. My heart hammered in my throat. My lungs burned from the cold air. I could hear the person crashing through the brush behind me, breaking branches, getting closer with every second. I burst out of the tree line onto the dirt road. I fumbled for my keys, jamming the unlock button repeatedly. I reached the driver's side and grabbed the handle. That's when I saw it. My truck was leaning at a weird angle. I looked down. Both driver's side tires were completely flat, shredded, and slashed open. Deep cuts. My stomach dropped. This wasn't random. I'd been set up. Someone had been waiting. I didn't have time to process it. I heard crunching snow from the woods behind me, but also from up the road ahead. "Hey!" a rough voice shouted. I spun around. 3 men were walking toward me quickly from where the road curved. Heavy camo jackets, dark jeans, boots. But the terrifying part was their faces. All wearing black ski masks covering everything except eyes and mouths. I looked back at the woods. The person who'd been chasing me stepped out, also masked. I was surrounded, 4 of them, 1 of me. "Look, just take the truck," I stammered, holding up my keys with shaking hands. "Take whatever you want, I won't say anything." The biggest guy didn't say a word, he just rushed me. I tried to fight back, throwing a wild punch, but it was useless. He was huge and fast. He tackled me hard into the truck. My head slammed against the metal with a sickening thud. White stars exploded across my vision. Before I could recover, the others were on me. It wasn't a fight, it was a brutal beatdown. They kicked my ribs repeatedly, punched my face, stomped my legs. I curled into a ball, trying to protect my head. "Grab him up," one growled. Two hauled me up roughly and slammed me against the truck door. My nose was bleeding freely, hot blood dripping onto my jacket. The big guy stood directly in front of me, staring through his mask. He reached into my pocket and violently ripped out my wallet and phone. "Unlock the phone," he said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "Why do you need that?" I gasped, tasting copper blood in my mouth. He punched me hard in the stomach without hesitation. I doubled over, wheezing. "Unlock it. Now." My hand shook violently as I used my thumbprint to unlock it. He snatched it back immediately. He started scrolling slowly, deliberately. He wasn't looking for banking apps. He was looking at my photos, then my messages, then my email, then my contacts, scrolling slowly. He held up my wallet and pulled out my driver's license, studying it closely. "Michael." He read my name out loud, slow and clear. Then he read my complete home address, including the apartment number. He looked back at the phone. Then he turned the screen toward me. It was a photo I'd taken of Emma 3 weeks earlier on her 6th birthday. She was in our backyard holding up 6 fingers and smiling wide, wearing her purple birthday dress. "Cute kid," the man said flatly. "Emma, right? She goes to Riverside Elementary School." He paused. "Room 112. Miss Patterson's class." The blood in my veins turned to ice. My entire body went numb. "Please," I begged, my voice breaking. "Please, just take the money. Take everything. Don't hurt them. Don't hurt my family." The man stepped closer, leaning in until his masked face was inches from mine. I could smell stale tobacco and coffee on his breath through the fabric. "We're keeping the phone and wallet," he said slowly, enunciating every word. "And you're going to stay right here until we're long gone. You understand?" I nodded frantically. "You are calling a tow truck for at least 2 hours. When you do, you're telling them you hit something sharp on the road." He grabbed my jacket collar and yanked me forward. "If you go to the cops, if you tell them about the masks, if you give them any description," he gestured to the phone, "we know exactly where you sleep. We know where Emma goes to school. We know what time she gets dropped off. We know what time she gets picked up. We know what the bus stop looks like. We know her teacher's name." He paused, letting the horrible silence hang in the frozen air. "We know her best friend is named Sophie. We know you pick her up every Tuesday for soccer practice at 4:15. My legs nearly gave out. How did they know all this? How long had they been watching? "Do you understand me, Michael?" "Yes," I whispered. "I understand. Good boy." He shoved me down hard into the snow. They turned calmly, walked to a beat-up dark green SUV parked in the brush about 50 yards away, and drove off slowly. I lay in the freezing snow for nearly 40 minutes, terrified they'd come back if I moved. Eventually, I forced myself up. I was freezing, badly bruised, bleeding. My truck was useless. I had to walk almost 4 miles down the mountain before I got cell service on my wife's backup phone from the glove box. I flagged down a passing minivan, a nice older couple. When the husband offered his phone, I didn't call police. I called Jennifer. I told her I'd had a blowout and slid into a ditch. I told her I'd lost my phone in the snow trying to dig out. When I got home that night, I hugged Emma so hard she complained I was squeezing too tight. We moved exactly 3 months later. I told Jennifer I'd gotten a job offer in Colorado, but that was a lie. I just quit without another job lined up. I couldn't stand living in that house anymore, knowing 4 masked men knew exactly where my daughter slept every night. I never canceled the credit cards immediately. I waited 2 days so they wouldn't think I was acting suspicious. I never reported the assault. I never told anyone what really happened, and I never will. This happened on Christmas Eve back in 1998 when I was 8 years old. Since we're Jewish, we don't celebrate Christmas, so Christmas Eve was just like any other night for us. Our dad is a doctor, and since he's Jewish, he always works on call at the hospital during the Christmas holidays, so he wasn't home that night. That just left my little brother and me by ourselves for the evening while our dad worked his shift. Technically, our mom was home, but to be completely honest, she was battling severe alcoholism back then. Being an 8-year-old, I had no real understanding of what alcoholism meant. All I knew was that once it got dark, my mom would be passed out on the couch and absolutely impossible to wake up, no matter how hard we tried. I know it sounds harsh, but it's important to understand that detail for what happened next. My brother and I were downstairs in the living room watching television when we heard a firm knock at the front door. Being the oldest, I got up to see who it was. Our door had tall glass panes built into the frame, which made it easy to see who was standing on the other side without opening it. There was a man outside dressed in a full Santa Claus suit, complete with a red coat, white beard, black boots, and he was holding a large burlap sack over his shoulder. When he saw me approaching, he smiled this big, wide smile and waved at me enthusiastically, gesturing for me to come open the door. I walked closer to the door but kept my hand off the knob, and I remember thinking it was extremely odd that someone dressed like Santa would come to our house out of every house in the entire neighborhood. He leaned closer to the glass and said in this deep, jolly voice, "Hey there, kiddo. It's me, Santa Claus. Come on and let me in. I've got your presents right here in my bag." I remember telling him point blank that Santa isn't real and that even if he was real, he doesn't give presents to Jewish kids anyway. That's when his expression changed slightly and he said, "Of course I'm real. You know, in the past I only used to visit Christian homes, but lately I've been feeling terrible that Jewish children never get any presents from me, so this year I decided to change the rules. Now you can get presents too, just like all the other kids." But I wasn't buying it for a second. Instead, I remember getting genuinely angry at him, arguing back that Jewish kids do get presents, we just get them during Hanukkah and not on Christmas, so he needed to leave our porch. The moment I said that, the smile completely fell from his face. All that jolly charm and friendliness just vanished instantly, and his voice became cold and demanding as he started insisting that I open the door right now. I turned around and told my brother to go dial 911 immediately, and the moment I said that out loud, the guy seemed to panic and ran away from the door, disappearing into the darkness. We did call the cops, just like I said. However, unfortunately, the operator on the other end didn't seem to understand what we were trying to tell her. Looking back on it now as an adult, I think she probably thought we were just a couple of little kids who were excited and confused because Santa Claus was supposedly coming to our house on Christmas Eve. Regardless of the reason, she didn't take us seriously at all. Instead, she just told us in this dismissive tone that this number was only to be used for real emergencies, and then she disconnected the call before we could explain further. My brother and I were absolutely terrified now because we had no idea who else we could call for help. Since we were only 5 and 8 years old, the only phone numbers we actually knew how to dial from memory were our own home number and 911. And since this was the late 90s, my dad didn't have a cell phone yet, and I had absolutely no clue what the hospital's phone number was to try and reach him there. And with our mom completely impossible for us to wake up no matter how much we shook her or yelled, we were essentially completely on our own with no adult help coming. We sat there hoping and praying that the man in the Santa suit wouldn't come back, that maybe we'd scared him off for good. But only a few minutes later, we heard the knocking again, louder this time, more insistent. He said through the glass that he knew the cops weren't coming to help us, and that we should just go ahead and let him inside right now, or we would be in very big trouble. My brother started crying hard and ran upstairs as fast as he could, desperately trying to wake our mom up. Not knowing what else to do, with my heart pounding in my chest, I did the one thing that made sense to my 8-year-old brain in that moment of panic. I ran to the drawer where we kept supplies for our menorah and grabbed a bunch of the candles we use for Hanukkah. I lit all of them with matches as quickly as I could, then ran directly below where I knew the smoke detector was mounted on our ceiling. I blew out all the candles as fast as possible before tossing them up toward the smoke detector, waving my hands to push the smoke upward. Thankfully, they gave off just enough smoke to set off the piercing smoke alarm. As an adult looking back, I realize how incredibly stupid and dangerous this was, and I'm so fortunate that I didn't accidentally set our entire house on fire that night. But at that moment in time, all I knew was that our smoke alarm system was connected directly to the fire department, and it would instantly alert them and send help to our home without me needing to make a phone call. There was a fire station less than 2 minutes away from our house, so I knew they would arrive fast. My brother came running back downstairs, terrified by the sudden blaring of the fire alarm, but I quickly told him there was no actual fire and that he shouldn't go outside under any circumstances. Instead, I told him to wait inside with me and that help was coming. To my absolute shock and horror, when I looked back out through the glass panes, the guy in the Santa suit still had not left our property. Instead, the complete bastard actually ran directly toward the fire truck as it pulled up, presumably telling them some kind of story about why he was there. I remember watching through the window as he gestured wildly toward our house, and I could see him pointing at the front door. He claimed to the firefighters that he was so relieved they had shown up so quickly. I watched him explain with animated gestures that he was actually our father and that he had dressed up in the Santa Claus costume for Christmas Eve as a special surprise for his kids. He told them that his Santa suit didn't have any pockets to hold his house keys and that with the front door locked from the inside, he couldn't get the door open to save his children from the fire that was apparently happening. So he was begging the firefighters to please break down our door immediately so he could rescue us. And to my horror, the firefighter in charge actually seemed to believe his story. They were genuinely getting ready to use their equipment to break down our front door, and they shouted to us through the glass to stand back and move away. But my brother and I started crying and screaming at the top of our lungs, shouting at them that he wasn't our dad, that our real dad was working at the hospital right now, and that we had absolutely no idea who this man was. We screamed that we don't even celebrate Christmas because we're Jewish. The lead firefighter, who was positioning himself to break down the door, thankfully stopped what he was doing and actually listened to what we were saying. He looked at us carefully and asked, You don't celebrate Christmas? I shook my head frantically and told him no, we don't because we're Jewish, and I pulled off my kippah from my head and held it up to the glass so he could see it clearly. I also pointed desperately toward our menorah sitting on the table near the window. Then I completely broke down crying, my whole body shaking as I tried to explain through sobs how I had set off the smoke alarm on purpose to try and get help because the police wouldn't believe us when we called, and so please don't let this man into our house. The firefighter thankfully believed me. His entire expression changed as he turned to look at the man in the Santa suit with suspicion and asked him directly why Santa Claus would be showing up to a Jewish home on Christmas Eve. I don't remember exactly what excuse the guy tried to give, but whatever he said, the firefighters clearly didn't believe a single word of it. Two of them immediately wrestled the guy down to the ground, while the third one radioed for police to come to our address right away. They also asked me what hospital my dad worked at so they could contact him and let him know what was happening. The police arrived within minutes and arrested the man while he was still on the ground. Another officer stayed inside with us, keeping us calm until my dad came rushing home and the situation was fully explained to him. My dad was absolutely furious with our mom for being so intoxicated that she'd essentially slept through the entire terrifying ordeal, but mostly he was just overwhelmingly grateful that my brother and I were safe and unharmed. As far as Christmases go, I was genuinely glad to have our usual boring and quiet Christmas the following year. To this day, I honestly think that being Jewish is what saved my brother and my life that night, because if we had opened that door to let Santa inside, there's a very real chance that would have been our final Christmas Eve. Sophie sits alone in her living room on Christmas Eve. The silence is broken only by the soft jingling of her golden retriever Barnaby's collar tags as he shifts near the fireplace. Her husband Mark is pulling a double shift at the ER and won't be home until morning. Their home sits at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in suburban Connecticut, backing up to dense woods that form a wall of darkness at night. She's already locked up, alarm armed, every door checked twice. It's routine now, something Mark insisted on after break-ins 2 towns over last summer. Sophie settles onto the couch with chamomile tea, scrolling for something to watch. The house is warm, safe. The Christmas tree lights blink lazily in the corner. Everything feels normal. 2 hours pass. Then her phone buzzes. Person detected at front door. Sophie frowns. It's nearly 11 o'clock. Who would be at her door this late? She taps the doorbell camera app and the feed loads. Standing in the glow of her porch light is a figure in an old-fashioned caroler costume. A long crimson coat, tall black top hat, and thick scarf wrapped around their face. Only their eyes are visible, staring directly into the camera lens, not at the door, at the camera, not moving, not singing, not ringing the doorbell, just standing there, perfectly still. Sophie waits for them to do something, ring the bell, walk away. Teenagers probably, some prank. But 20 seconds pass and the figure hasn't moved. Their head tilts slightly, slow and deliberate. Their eyes don't blink. Sophie's pulse quickens. She taps the speaker button. Whoever you are, you need to leave, right now, or I'm calling the police. The words echo through the porch speaker. No response. The figure doesn't flinch. Their eyes remain locked on the camera, unblinking. Sophie's throat goes dry. She's about to dial police when a new sound cuts through the silence, a soft tapping, tap, 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 from the kitchen, from the sliding glass door to the backyard. Barnaby's ears prick up. His body goes rigid and a low growl builds deep in his chest. With shaking hands, Sophie switches to the backyard camera. Her stomach drops. 3 figures stand outside the glass door. They're wearing dark coats and plastic masks with wide smiles and hollow eyes. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, is testing the door handle, slowly, deliberately, pushing down, pulling up, testing it. Sophie's hands shake as she dials 911. The operator's voice is calm. 911, what's your emergency? Sophie's voice comes out frightened. There are people trying to break into my house, 4 of them, 1 at the front, 3 at the back. I'm alone. The operator asks for her address and Sophie gives it, eyes on the camera feed. Then, from outside, muffled but clear, a man's voice calls out, Sophie. Her breath catches. They know her name. The voice comes again, louder. Open the door, Sophie. We know you're in there. A pause. We missed you at the office party. The office party, 2 nights ago at her accounting firm. Sophie had left early, uncomfortable with how drunk people were getting. She'd barely talked to anyone. And now someone from that party is in her backyard saying her name. Stay on the line, the dispatcher says firmly. Officers are being dispatched. I need you to get to a room with a lock. Do you have a bathroom or bedroom? Sophie whispers, yes. Do it now, ma'am. Take your phone and stay on the line. A thunderous crack as the man's boot slams into the door frame. The frame shudders. Wood splinters. Barnaby erupts into savage barking, teeth teeth bared. Sophie bolts from the couch, Barnaby at her heels. The upstairs is too far. She veers into the hallway and throws herself into the powder room, slamming the door and twisting the flimsy lock. She knows it won't hold. The dispatcher's voice tells her help is coming, just stay quiet. Another massive kick, wood cracking, then the crash. The sliding door gives way. Glass explodes across the kitchen. Sophie hears cold air rushing in, then footsteps. Heavy boots on broken glass, inside her house. Where are you hiding, Sophie? The voice is playful, teasing. Multiple footsteps spreading through the house. Check upstairs, another voice says. I'll check down here. Sophie presses her hand over her mouth. Barnaby is still barking fiercely. Then Barnaby launches himself at them. A brutal collision, vicious growling, a man shouting in pain. The crash of furniture, more cursing. Get it off me! Get it off! Sophie hears tearing fabric, heavy thuds. Barnaby snarls. Shoot it! Another voice screams. Shoot the dog! Sophie's heart stops. They have a gun. The dispatcher is still talking, telling her officers are almost there. Then, sirens. Loud, piercing sirens flooding the street. Red and blue lights flash through the window, multiple sirens, a booming voice. Police, show me your hands, drop your weapons, chaos, oh shit, go, go, go. Boots pounding, running through the kitchen, crunching glass, heading for the backyard. More shouting, stop, police. The sounds of a chase, people crashing through her fence. Sophie doesn't move. She stays locked in the bathroom, body shaking. The dispatcher says officers are entering now. She stays there until a gentle knock and a calm voice. Ma'am, this is Officer Patterson. You're safe now. The suspects fled. You can come out. She fumbles with the lock, hands shaking. She stumbles out and sees Barnaby limping toward her, blood on his muzzle and a gash across his snout, but his tail is wagging. Sophie collapses, wrapping her arms around him, sobbing. Two officers stand in her hallway. Ma'am, are you injured? Sophie shakes her head. One officer radios that the homeowner is safe. Another surveys the damage. We'll need a statement, but first, let's get you and your dog checked out. The living room is destroyed. The door shattered, snow blowing in. Glass everywhere, furniture knocked over, and blood smeared across the carpet. Not hers, not Barnaby's, one of the intruders. Over the next hour, Sophie learns what happened. Two intruders were caught immediately in the woods. One had a 9mm handgun. The other two escaped in a car but were caught on doorbell cameras. Within 3 hours, both were arrested, all four in custody by 3 in the morning. The man who kicked in her door is Kevin Brandt, 28, works in IT at her firm. Sophie's blood runs cold. Kevin. She's seen him around the office dozens of times. Always in the break room, always alone, always watching. They'd never spoken. She didn't know his name until tonight. The detective says Kevin has a deep laceration on his calf and required 18 stitches. Barnaby did that. The detective's face is grim. Ma'am, we searched Mr. Brandt's car and apartment. There was a notebook in his car, multiple notebooks, pages of notes about you, your routine, when you leave for work, when you come home, the coffee shop you visit, your license plate, your husband's work schedule. He knew Mark worked overnight Christmas Eve. He'd been planning this for months. Sophie feels sick. The detective continues. We also found photos. You walk into your car, at the grocery store, in your driveway. Mr. Brandt has been stalking you for at least 4 months. The other 3 say they were just supposed to scare you, that it was Kevin's idea, that they were drunk. They're all being charged with attempted home invasion, criminal trespass, stalking, firearm possession during a felony, and conspiracy. Sophie sits on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, Barnaby's head on her lap. His snout is bandaged. He'll need stitches tomorrow. Mark is on his way home. The house is a crime scene now. As the sun rises on Christmas morning, Sophie stares at the shattered door, the blood on her carpet, the scattered glass. She thinks about Kevin Brandt in the break room, watching her, months of watching, planning, waiting for the night she'd be alone. She realizes that if she hadn't had the doorbell camera, if Barnaby hadn't fought, if police hadn't arrived fast, this night would have ended very differently. She's alive because of luck, technology, a brave dog, and fast officers, nothing more.